My name is Andy, and together with the tremendous Consone Quartet, we're going to demonstrate some of the interesting composition techniques used in a piece called Tuggemo, written by English composer Anna Meredith. Anna Meredith is a composer, producer, and performer of both acoustic and electronic music. Tuggemo is a piece of music for string quartet and a backing track, which in this sort of music might be described as string quartet with electronics. It was composed in 2017. Your piece could be inspired by Tuggemo in a number of ways. For example, you might be inspired by the use of electronics and combining beats with the sound of the string quartet. Or you might be inspired by some of the music itself. For example, a particular sound, texture, rhythm or melody, and use snippets of those in new and interesting ways. You might be inspired by some of the ways Anna Meredith asks the musicians to play their instruments and create new music using these same techniques. Tuggemo is a one-movement piece around 5 minutes long. Let's have a listen to an extract. How does this music make you feel? What do you think of when you listen to it? Well, Tuggemo is an old English word for a swarm of birds or flies. Anna Meredith says that this piece is all about swoops of direction and energy. Maybe that idea of movement is something that could inspire you when writing your piece. For example, how could you represent the flight of a bird using sound and music? One unusual feature of Tuggemo is the use of lots and lots of glissandos. This is when the musicians slide from one note to the next, like this. In Tuggemo, Anna Meredith conveys this sense of a swarm of birds or flies by having all the instruments playing glissandos at the same time. Some instruments are sliding down in pitch, while others are sliding up in pitch, giving the sense that the animals are moving in lots of different directions. Let's have a closer look in case you'd like to use glissandos in your music. First of all, you have a note to tell the musicians where you want the glissando to start. Then you have a second note where you want the top of the glissando to be, for example at the start of the next bar or 3 bars later. Then you draw a line from one note head to the next. Another way Anna Meredith conveys this sense of swarming is by using a technique called imitation. This is when one instrument or a group of instruments copy or imitate something that's been done by another instrument several times over. This could be a rhythm or a melody. In Tuggemo, Anna Meredith has chosen to imitate the rhythm, the direction, and the shape of the glissandos. For example, whether they're going up or down. Have a listen to this extract. Can you hear how the cello and the viola imitate the rhythms of violin 1 and 2 half a bar later? Another example of how imitation is used is later on in the piece when the violin 2 plays a rhythm and the viola and cello respond with the same rhythm but using different pitches. Let's have a go at creating imitation and thinking about how we can use our different instruments in the quartet to do this. First of all, we need something to imitate, perhaps a rhythmic motif or a melody. Now, if you haven't got one, perhaps use a rhythm from the student resource pack, for example, one of these. Your next decision is to choose which instrument or instruments are going to play it first. For example, I've chosen viola and violin 1 to play it. Now we need to decide who is going to imitate this and when. I've chosen the second violin, but when it happens requires a bit more thought. The imitation could happen at the half bar, at the next bar, 2 bars later. I've decided on a half bar because I like the way it sounds. This rhythmic motif could be imitated many more times and by other instruments in the ensemble, and that's up to you how long that goes on for. But one thing to consider is what instruments are doing when they're not imitating. They could be resting, they could be playing another different melody, or they could be playing a bass line, for example. Another musical idea I like in Tuggemo is the use of a repetitive short motif, which I think could be influenced by techno music. Take a listen to this cello part. There are 2 versions of the motif. The first lasts just 4 notes. And a second version of that which adds 2 extra notes on the end. Anna Meredith alternates between the 2 versions with no fixed pattern, which helps create a sense of not being able to predict what is coming next. Again, much like the unpredictability of a swarm of birds or flies. Another way Anna Meredith creates this idea of unpredictability is by constantly changing the time signatures in the music. Time signatures tell us how many beats there are in a bar of music. For example, this tells us that there are 4 crotchet beats per bar. This tells us there are 3 crotchet beats per bar. By constantly changing time signatures, the music loses its sense of balance and predictability. It can create quite exciting music full of surprise and can make you feel caught off guard. Why do you think this irregular pulse is suited to Anna Meredith's ideas? When might you want to change time signature in your piece? I hope you've enjoyed learning more about Tuggemo. We're really looking forward to seeing what amazing music you come up with.